What's up, everybody? It's the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. We are your hosts, platinum producers, Arkatech Beatz. I'm Juggernaut.
I am Mike Trauma D.
And together we make this super duper production group, Arkatech Beatz. And if it's your first time here, make sure that you're subscribing to the channel, making sure that you put those notification bells on. And today we're going to be talking about the music business and how it's currently evolving, right? So we want to talk about how artists and producers can survive in the new music business while it's currently evolving. We're watching a shift in real time. We're watching music change. We're watching your favorite artists kind of lose fanfare. We're watching everything kind of tilt on its head in the music industry, whether it be producers, technology, whether it be label switches in terms of new CEOs in different places. So everything right now is a big reset. So we wanted to kind of talk about that, how things are resetting and how you can really navigate what's about to happen in terms of where it's going, what the future looks like. And we just want to get into it. So, Mike, you and I have been talking before we even got on here, trying to figure out like really what's happening in the music industry. We're seeing a lot of artists come out. We're seeing some sales data look a little funny. We're watching producers kind of struggling with AI. We're watching different things happening in real time. Where do you think this is all going?
That's a very good question. If it feels like it's there's a big reset happening. It feels like from an artist standpoint. Well, let me say this. Artists are not happy with streaming and the percent they're getting from streaming.
Yeah.
First and foremost, major artists, indie artists, just all artists in general. Nobody is happy about it. Nobody's happy about, how much streams you have to have in order to get a decent piece of the pie. It's just ridiculous. You know, um, Artists felt that, and when it came to the negotiation of that, we weren't even included in that. So there were a lot of deals that went on behind the scenes that wasn't in the benefit of the actual artist. We're losing out. So because of that, a lot of artists are saying, you know what, let me go independent. Let me put out music direct to consumer. And the artists that chose to do that are definitely seeing a better return on their art. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people are starting to see that and say, you know what? Not only can I be an independent artist and get a and get a larger part of my money back, you know, I can actually make the music that I want to make. Actually be creative. I don't have to be on the thumb of a record label telling me when I can put out music, what kind of music I could put out, and then on top of that, not getting my share cut, you know. And then we have record company auditing issues that's happening behind the scenes as well. So not only are you not getting what you're supposed to get up front, but on top of that, you're still getting shafted when it comes to auditing and all the other things. So, artists are just fed up, man, and we're tired of it. They're tired of getting pushed around, tired of getting nothing for all the hard work they've been putting in. So, it's independent is where it is. You know what I'm saying? Independent is where it is. You know, I told the artist the other day that maybe they should just think about just putting out a single on Spotify. That's it. Just use Spotify as a promotional tool only for your single. And when it comes to your album, you put it out on your website.
This is I didn't consider that. Like, I didn't consider the artists revolting against streaming. And because that's exactly what it feels like. It feels as if like the best music isn't being put out, and it seems like everybody's kind of holding their music hostage because of trying to navigate this whole streaming thing and trying to figure out, okay, like how do I get a bigger part of the pie? And I know that like even Biz and those guys, they're trying to promote the situation like, hey, the direct to consumer route. And I know there's a few artists that are using that, like also a few others that are using that type of system to kind of make sure that they can go directly to consumer. From a producer standpoint, and where things are evolving for producers, um, do you think that it's getting easier or harder to make a living as a producer because of the way that the industry is shifting, or do you think that it's going to get it'll be less difficult? I guess.
Well, it depends on where you're positioned as a producer. You know, um, I remember, you could get as a producer, you could charge in advance, you know, $5,000, $10,000 a pop. Some artists, some producers, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, depending on how even $250,000 if you're a major producer, and you only had to sell maybe one or two beats a year, and you were pretty much
Yeah, you
you know
said.
you were pretty much good for the year. Now, because there's so many producers, that's number one. There's so many tools, very easy tools. So being a producer is very easy as far as the entry level. There's so many tools that can help you do the beats or do the beats for you, with AI. So there's a lot more competition. And because there's so many producers, so much competition, the value has decreased, which makes it difficult for producers to, you know, stand out, makes it difficult for producers to make a living because there's just so many, and you have to bring more value, as a producer, more than just making beats. You got to have to stand out from the rest of the pack. So it really depends on how you position yourself.
That's real talk. I've been trying to pay attention to what the landscape is looking like, and just looking at different producers and everybody trying to do different things. Like the main thing is folks have started to really shift towards sound design. They've been adding that to their bag,
Hmm.
and then offering mixing and mastering services as well. I think for a lot of producers have been offering that as well, and really just trying to, uh, like I said, create more value and putting more things out. And then the other thing that I was seeing the other day was I was still seeing more legacy artists putting out projects together, joint projects.
Hmm.
And I think that that's probably a good thing that's going to be happening, where you're going to see more artists just collaborating with a single producer and putting projects out. And you start seeing more of that happening. And I think that's also good for the culture as far as like just kind of getting this business to evolve a little bit more.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the sales currently? Because you have some artists that came out this week that had some real wild sales numbers. Um, they're not really as high as they used to be. I mean, I guess with streaming, I don't even know if that's even accurate to say. But
I mean, there are a lot of cuts happening with fraudulent streaming, bots. So there's a big attack on, get that under control, and I think a lot of that is contributing to these sales. You know, yeah, I hate to say it, even the major artists have a couple of bots, streaming going on. Nothing is 100% real. Nothing's off the table. You know what I'm saying? So when all of a sudden you see artists not selling as much as they used to, you got to take everything into consideration. Whether number one, if the record is even good. Number two, if the marketing and promotion was what it needed to be. Did they pull back on that? Was the fanfare as heavy as it was before, or is the consumers, are they just tired of those type of records now? While they using bots, was it never that high number to begin with? It was just all fraudulent. Like, is nothing is off the table. It could be any or all of those reasons at the same time.
that's the new music industry, though. Like, this is the new music industry. The new music industry has to basically deal with all types of technology, has to deal with bots, has to deal with fake streams. Like, this is all part of the new music industry. Now, I know people don't want to believe that they use bots and stuff to enhance people's credibility. Like, this has always been the system. For those who know, this has been happening for the better part of 10 years.
Right.
Right? Maybe more than 10 years, right? If I'm being totally honest, I'm thinking this has been going on maybe the last 15 years, right? This has always been part of the situation. So now them trying to pull back on it now, I think is really hurting the music industry as a whole. It's just saying, okay, we want to pull back on it because now we don't want to pay for certain type of streams and certain type of stuff. Like, you guys have always been doing it, and now all of a sudden you guys want to say that you want to do it. And then also, I think this is also a way for these guys to not pay on legitimate streams too, because to me, they can deem anything as a fraudulent stream. So there's really no checks or balances with that. So
there's another aspect. There's another part to it too. Does it allow us to really see how hot you really are? Because a lot of these records were never that hot, and like you always say, it's mid, it's mid, it's mid. It's not that.
Listen, it's been so mid for so long. Like, folks don't even realize what good music is anymore. It's been so for so long.
So now that you start removing some of these bots and start removing the veil, you know, now we can really see, you know, were you really hot to begin with in the first place, you know? So that's something to take into consideration as well. You know, maybe you weren't that hot. And to go back to say about the legacy artists, man, it's great to finally hear from them again. You know, it's great that they know that they are still needed and they're still desired. Like, we still want that kind of music. And I think creatively, you know, people are tired of drill, tired of trap a little bit. It's kind of run its course a bit, and it was a hell of a run. It's been a hell of a run, but you know, just like at one point, you know, New York hip hop and even West Coast hip hop, you know, it definitely has to grow. And trap music and drill music has kind of stayed the same, with no real intervention, no real growth, nothing new, just the same old. So you know, people get tired quickly. So now, New York hip hop and even West Coast hip hop has an opportunity now to, you know, bring some up to date music, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, you have, you know, Snoop and Dogg Pound, you know, dropping new music, and you have Dr. Dre about to drop a new music. You know, you have even Mary J. Blige and Fabulous new record is dope, and you got, you know, like there's so much new hip hop that's moving around. You got independent companies, you got Loud Records making a comeback. So there's just a lot of different things that you're like, that old hip hop, that those records, maybe there is a place for it.
I used to have this issue, and I think you used to always hear me say the issue is, yo, old folks kind of need to, you know, stand down a little bit, let the new folks do what they got to do. And I never thought I would get to this point where I'm saying to myself, damn, we stood aside, let the young folks do what they had to do, and they ran it into the ground. And it's like, and then people are gonna say they're gonna look at me and say, what do you mean they ran it into the ground? It's like they created music that was just trendy. You know, they didn't create music with the thought process of, can this song play for the next 10, 15, 20 years? It's
not their fault though.
Granted, I can understand that. I feel like all these artists that are coming in now, it's like because the music is so trendy, it's like it doesn't give us the ability to kind of say, okay, damn, you know, Like these songs just come and go. Whereas if we go to a roller rink now, or if we go to a place where music is played publicly, they'll be still playing the same songs of the last 20 years.
But here's the issue. You have you have these young kids that want to be popular. They want to be famous. They want the record deals. They want all those things that they looked up to a lot of the OGs. They want those things. But the record label is going to tell you, well, we're only doing this, or we only accepting this kind of music, or this is we're interested in this, or you got to sound like this. So they're going to conform and do whatever the record label says so they could get that opportunity. And I think a lot of that is happening. You know, um, the OGs have stepped to the side, maybe a little too far to the side,
Yeah.
and haven't been involved. I think this would have been a great time for more Rockefellers, more Maybach music, for more, all of those, QC, more,
The boutique labels.
more of the boutique label. There needed to be more of those, and really, these OGs really needed to be hands on with the next generation. They needed to do their own gatekeeping, find the talent and work with them for the sake of not just making music, but we're also going to make sure that culturally we want to make sure this thing survives. I think we were just way too hands off, and it's like a kid in a walker, just let them go crazy. And we didn't really say, you know what, we want to make sure that we still got a hand in this, and we could still like direct and say, hey, this is the best way to go about it, and this is how you do it, and this is how you make your best music that's going to last. We didn't do that.
It definitely shows. And, my complaint on this podcast, and for those who have been watching us, they know my complaint. I've been saying this thing for years, is that the music has been mid. And it didn't have, and when I was saying it was mid, people mistook that for being a hater or not wanting to really like what was happening with the newer generation and the newer artists. And that wasn't it. There were a few artists that really understood uh how to make music that was going to last in terms of melodically, musically, and making music that didn't have it had a hint of your region, but it still had the ability to have broad appeal. And
Hmm.
there's only a handful of artists that know how to do that, how to make music that sounds like them in their region, but still have broader appeal because it was good songwriting or good production, and they married the way that it need to marry in order for it to really have a long lasting effect and that it could really, you know, um, move forward in time. And just only a handful of artists that understand how to do that, right? At the highest levels, your Drakes, your J. Cole's, a few others, some guys know how to do it. Kendrick, some other artists, no, it's just trends. It's just trends, and it's just music that just doesn't really move the envelope. And I think you and I were talking about it earlier too, was just being able to have cookie cutter production, you know,
Technology has,
clicking, maybe people lazy
yeah.
and click and drag, and then we're using all of the same MIDI packs, we're using all of the same sticks, we're using everything is the same. So it was never making the music evolve. It was just keeping it in a certain situation. So now we're looking at the sales data, and we're looking at the lack of interest in hip hop, or most genres of music right now, outside of like the international Afro beats and stuff like that. And but for the US market, there's like a lack of interest in what's happening, especially in hip hop music. And it's like, well, yeah, because the shit sound the same. like,
but
and
this,
it's kind of run its course.
but it's more than that. I think there's a lot of things happening at the exact same time. I think I think hip hop was not prepared for 50 years. You know, I think there was no plan like what happens to the artist and the consumer of that artist when you reach a certain age bracket. You know, I should not be hearing Ice Spice and then Nas right behind. Like
It
those, it
don't
doesn't
go. It don't
doesn't
go.
it doesn't make sense. Not just musically, but it doesn't make sense as far as your target audience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, every other genre can have subgenres and varying different kinds of that genre. But hip hop as a whole, like there needs to be, yeah, you have your gangster, your trap, your drill, your boom bap, yeah. But as far as your audience, your target audience, you know, there's no way a 50-year-old should be brought into a 16-year-old. Like it just it that's not it. There needs to be radio stations that have older generation hip hop, and it's not considered old school stuff. You know what I'm saying? It has to be current. But in order for that to happen, we also still need to have our legacy artists putting out current good music. You know, so we need our own spot. You know, so that when the younger generation can see, oh, okay, there is something down the line. You don't have to start rapping at 28 or 30. Oh, there is another after this, there is another genre that I can be successful in. So I don't always gotta make this kind of music. I want to grow and graduate to that. Like fine wine. You know what I'm saying?
So basically, we're looking at categorizing it in sort of like an adult contemporary hip hop.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
to be honest, like now that we're talking it through, it's like that is a lane. Like there has to be a lane for adult contemporary hip hop that gives our legacy artists the ability to continue to create,
And compete.
right, and compete, right? So to create and then can be consumed, right?
Right.
Because I want to be able to consume the things that are relevant to me, my age bracket, so forth and
Right.
so on. And because those guys kind of feel like they've been kind of displaced because they kept telling, hey, it's a young person's game, it's a young person's game, and
Hmm.
there's no outlets for them, right? Because we have not created that lane in terms of, hey, if I wanted to go to radio, where does it go? It doesn't go because they'll say, well, we don't want, that's not our demographic for this, right? So if we had a whole a, a lane for it, a channel, if if we can say that would make a whole lot more sense because now we were looking at not just the artist's legacy music, but also give an avenue for artists of that bracket or caliber to continue to create new music and have some place where it can be consumed.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's up to us so to build that, because I think that's really something that we would like. Like like LL's coming out with new stuff. We want to be able to listen to that.
Right.
Um Busta and them is coming out with new stuff, right?
Yeah.
Nas and them coming out with new stuff. Fat Joe and them is coming out with new
Mhm.
stuff. It's
And
like
and they
that's
and
not for
they should
everybody.
and they shouldn't have to compete with the Ice Spices, the Megan Thee Stallions, the Chef G.
Yeah.
All they shouldn't have to be competing against that. Like that's just it's not fair to either party. It's not right to either party. You know, that's almost like it's like sharing a space. When each space has its own merit and its own right in itself. Each has its own target audience, has its own fanfare, and it should be, you know, it's almost like, it's like you can't afford an apartment, so you got three people living in the same bedroom. You know what I'm saying? One on the floor. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, yo,
But they only do that with they only do that with our genre.
well,
You see what I'm
our
saying?
our program directors at these radio stations gotta fight the fight too. You know what I'm saying? Number one, they gotta fight the fight, and our legacy artists gotta continue, gotta keep putting out heat. Shout out to MC Light. You know what I'm saying? She put out a new record. It's just dope. Like now is the time for artists to just put out what they want, put out what and be creative. and there's a lane for that. There's a space for that.
The joke was why did they even stop? Like, you didn't need to rate the like at this point we didn't need the major label money. We don't need it. They don't need it. Like everybody, all of these artists at this point have all been in this game long enough to have recording sessions on their own.
Yeah, but
They've
I
been
think
finding, the process of recording and releasing music.
well,
It's access to everybody. Like, what prevented my favorite
life,
artists from life be life, and I get it.
life, responsibilities, marriage, children, health, all of these things. And when you're a consumer of at that age, you understand that. So you're not really even mad at that because it's just, it's, you understand that. And also that's great material to use in your music. But for a person who's not that age, they're not going to understand that. And the record companies, they're not waiting for that. It's been drilled in our heads that we only got a shelf life of maybe 4 or 5 albums if we're lucky, you know. So that's been drilled in our heads forever. You know, hip hop is a young person's music. It's been drilled in our heads. So we've been led to believe that, but nobody really challenged that and said, nah.
That ain't
But
it.
but shout out to artists like Nas and Dr. Dre, and they're still doing it. Snoop Dogg still doing it, and all of the artists that of that caliber, of that age, like put out music. Put out music. There's a lane for it. There's fans that want to hear it. Put out music, put out new music. Tell us about your journey. Tell us what's happening in your life, because we as adults can identify with it. We can identify with what's going on. And then at the same time, you're showing the younger audience that there's still a space for you. We need you. We need you. We need you to grow and mature into this. If this is what you consider to be a career, there's a space for that. You know, it ain't just young people music. I think because of that, you wouldn't have so many old folks trying to do young people's music looking kind of silly. You
Yeah,
know.
bro, it's real. I think that's part of the evolution is finding your tribe, finding your niche. I think finding your segmentation, and I think a lot of artists can do a lot more by kind of understanding that whole methodology of like, okay, here goes an audience that wants it,
Hmm.
and let's create the channel for that, right? And create the pathway for that, and um it's just interesting, because I was watching a portion of the Shannon Sharp and uh, LL Cool J interview, and he was like, I'm the first artist on Def Jam. And when I think about that, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is late '80s, right?
You want to say you old as fuck? You
You know
like,
what I mean? Like, but to think that he can collaborate with Q-Tip and it's still music that sounds dope to me, it's like that's just him. That's just him and his ability to continue to deliver what's real to him. And some of it will resonate with his fans, some of it may not. Some of the fans may have outgrown it. Some of the fans may still want him to do. Brenda got a big old butt, and he's not doing that. Like, he's doing something that feels true to him right now. And I think Nas gave a lot of these guys a blueprint on how to do that now in 2024. And shout out to him and even Kanye, these guys, like they're just doing what they want to do and evolving into their own space and just creating their own situation. And Kanye has definitely showed cats, listen, do it yourself, put it out through here. Tory Lanez are showing people how to do things with the NFT project that nobody really paid attention to. But he sold that million copies real fast, and NFTs that nobody really wanted to talk about.
yeah.
But that was the future, and that was evolving. And I think it could still come back to that. I just think that you see the music industry trying to suppress that because they don't want to. Hold on, the guy's lost mic. Get him back on.
I'm here.
I don't think the music industry wants to enrich the consumer. And I think NFTs was creating a platform where you can enrich the consumer. Everybody can get rich, you know,
Yeah.
using that type of platform. But you know, people call it a scam. People will say this and that. But if
Well,
people who
takes a
really
couple of bad
understand the thought behind that, you
takes a
know,
couple of bad apples to mess up a good thing, you know. And the thing is, there's so many. The problem is that there's so many people in the music business that has their own agenda. They have
yeah,
their own thing. They don't care about the culture. They're trying to get the bag. And I understand the economy is such in a funny shape. Nobody wants to lose their job. So there are executives that are doing things on the side to make sure that they can solidify not just their job, but just solidify their income stream. Because you know the economy is so, like, look, we just saw a shakeup at Warner Brothers, right? We just saw a shakeup at Warner Records. Like some top dogs have been removed from the positions who's been in the game for 20 plus years, you know, and it's you kind of wondering, okay, what's next? We, head of Rock Nation just left, and she's been with Rock Nation since it was Rockefeller, and they got their own distribution situation that just happened, their own distribution. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But there's a lot of shifts going on. A lot of record labels are moving around, changing people at the helm, and trying to figure out where they are going to position themselves. Are they going to be a full-fledged record label? Are they going to be a record label with their own distribution? Or are they going to be a tech company? You know, so there's a lot of trying to reinvent or trying to figure out, you know, where they're going to position themselves. And artists, producers, you got to figure that out as well. Where you're going to position yourself, and where you're going to align yourself, and what are you going to do to make sure that you can sustain and be profitable.
I really don't think that as artists, producers, that we're paying enough attention to the technology portion of it all. I think that we're falling short on it. I think a lot of us are caught up in the creativity part of it, and
Hmm.
not really looking at the implementation of technology and making sure that you're putting that in as part, or incorporating it as part of your creativity. I think those things are not being exploited enough, and I think what's happening is that we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage. I continue to see people kind of downplaying some AI stuff, and it's talked about, but it's not talked about like it was as heavily as before. Um, Not realizing how good these things are, how good these models are, how it can help you to exponentially create faster. Um, and even using it to just close some of the gaps that we may have in the music industry.
It's just it's typical shit. It's really just business as usual. And what I mean by that is, you know, you want to get into the music business, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to be successful. People won't read a book. People won't check out YouTube videos and check for themselves. People won't ask questions. People don't read their contracts. Uh, People, for the most part, don't do the things they need to do that's going to help them be successful, even if you lay it out for them. And it's the
Right.
same thing with AI. You know, People are stuck in their habits, stuck in their old ways. They're intimidated, whatever, or they just don't want to do it, whatever the reason. But business as usual. You're going to have people who take advantage of change, take advantage of technology. That's just the nature of that's just the nature of things. And it happens all the time. You had people who only made beats on hardware alone, and when the software era came, they didn't want to transition, and those people were kind of kept at bay until and had to wait it out until things come back around. Or you have people who say, you know, I'm gonna transition and do this and still keep my name out there, keep making music, keep networking with new artists, and we're able to continue being relevant. You know, that's just the nature of people. You know, some people will adapt, and some people just won't. Some people will learn to do things uh, different ways, and some people won't. And you have to just pick and choose what type of person you're going to be. You can sit around and wait. You can sit around and play the bench and watch AI or watch NFTs or watch, you know, all of these things that happen. It's really on you. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we provide this forum to kind of give guys the heads up, but you know, we provide books and all these other things to help, but it's up to them. And if they don't want to take it, that's really on them, you know. Business as
And
usual.
and on that note, I'm gonna jump into the word from my sponsor. This episode of the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast is brought to you by our own ebooks, the Songwriter's Guide to Song Registration, the Musician's Guide to Music Copyrights, the Musician's Guide to Music Publishing, and the Ultimate Guide to Forming Your Own Music LLC. All of these books are really essential for artists, producers, musicians to really learn how to navigate the music industry and how to really make a living off of your art. So just make sure you go pick those up. Those are available at arkatechbeats.com. We're going to put a link in the description. And thank you guys for supporting. We provide the game. I don't know if people are really trying to find out what the game is so they can make sure they can stay on top of everything.
I mean, it's everything in life, Chuck. Whether it's music or health or just your knowledge in your career, you know, a person has to be open-minded and willing to learn these things in order to make themselves better at it. So if AI is coming into play and you don't want to check it out or you have your reservations about it, and then you're gonna get left behind for the most part. You know, while everybody else is gonna be utilizing the tools to try and make sure that they get their jobs done quicker and be more efficient. It's really on them.
So before we get out of here, what do you think now? Because we said that this music industry is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of music right now, if we were talking about, let's say, a particular genre like hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see that trajectory going right now? And what would an artist coming in now need to pay attention to?
Well, you always have to pay attention to technology. You always got to pay attention to what's going around you on a technology level, as well as the music scene. What I'm hoping that it'll go back to, which just started to look like it, but we'll see, is that the different regions are starting to make records more that fits their region. I think that's what's needed. That's number one. I think that will help with the creativity, which leads me to two. I just think there needs to be more creativity, you know, in making music. There are no rules, you know, and you don't have to do records a certain way. You know, yes, there's some fundamental things of making sure that you sound good on a record and audible and be able to hear you and understand you. You want to make sure that your music is audible, all the elements in your records that you want. So there's certain fundamentals, of course, but you can put it out whenever you want to put it out. Whatever style you want to put it out, you do not have to be conformed to a certain type of way. If you wake up in the morning and say, hey, I want to make a boom bap record with a melody on top of it, not only can you do it, but you can put it out yourself. You know, I think the days of relying on a major record label, I think is the wrong direction. I think now you're independent. and you should do things at your pace. Work on getting to know your fans, whether it's 10 fans, whether it's 20 fans. Know those fans, find out what they want, what they like about you, and continue to supply that and help them help you.
Yeah.
And those 10 to 20 fans will turn to 30, 50, 60, 100. You don't need to sell a lot of items. You don't. If you're selling a direct to consumer MP3 downloads at $10 for the album directly, get shirts, you have meet and greets, signed pictures, memorabilia on your site. Those 10 to 20 fans, the true fans, they will buy it all. If you're personally shouting them out, doing certain things, I think the independent artist has to really connect with their fans. The I need to do 50,000, 100,000 purchases first day, first week is unnecessary, because if you're doing that on a major label with the streaming and then the way your contracts are set up and the bad auditing, you're not getting any money. And on top of that, you're not even getting the metrics. You're not getting the email addresses or the phone numbers of your consumers. The record label is getting that. The distributor is getting that. Like, you're doing all that work, and they're getting the information. Data is gold right now.
And say it again. I'll hit people in the back. Like, that's liquid gold right now.
It's liquid gold right now. Like, whoever has the list that has the email addresses, not necessarily the address, but the area, the neighborhood, or the state where the fans are from. You have all of that information. That's gold, because you can target what you need to target for that. You could find out. You know how important it is to ask for feedback. That's why all these major companies do it. When you go get your car service at a dealership, or you buy a product, 2 days later, AT&T or Ford or whoever, they're sending you an email. How was our service? What can we do to make it better? What didn't we do? They ask you these questions so that they can make those changes and retarget.
Yep. And market to you further in the future.
Right. And then on top of that, they have third party people that they partner with. So some of them share your information with their partners. It's big business. So here you are giving your music out, but you're not getting that information. And that information is going to be key. So I think artists now, today, what's going to be important is for them to get that information, to focus on their consumers directly. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. Get that information, and retarget. And then you start to see it grow. You start finding out, oh, my consumer likes this. My consumer like these kind of records that I did. They didn't really care for these records, but they love these records.
Yeah.
When we did a show in their area, they liked when we did this. They liked when we did it on this date, this type of day, at this time. This was best for them. Like, all these little things work. So I think that's where we're going, if you want to be successful, at least.
And it's happening at rapid pace. And I don't think people are paying attention to that either. That it's happening very quickly. And for the artists that pivot and get in front of it, those are the ones that are going to continue to be successful in the future. The ones that understand their audience, understand their fan base, know how to supply that, know how to make sure that they can use technology to make things happen really quickly in real time. they're going to be the ones that really kind of get successful in the situation.
Yeah. And not just be successful, but remain successful. That's another ballgame. To remain, to have longevity, to matter in another 5 years, So that's I think that's key. You want to be around. You want to stick around. And nothing worse than having a hit and then tomorrow you got nothing to show for it.
True.
That's
definitely real. Folks, this is the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. Make sure that you're following us at arkatechbeats.com. The new channel is Arkatech Beatz Pod. The new socials are Arkatech Beatz Pod. Make sure you're looking out for those. Make sure you're following those. Any parting words to these folks out here who are trying to navigate this crazy music business?
Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes and ears open. Pay attention. Subscribe to every news thing that you can, so you can know what's going on. Know who's who. I think that's also key. Knowing who's who, who's where. And most of all, just be creative. Make the records you want to make. Don't rely on trying to sound like other people or trying to fit in the cookie cutter space of other music, because that music is already on its way out. So come with something new, come fresh. You could do anything you want to do.
Appreciate that. Folks, stay safe out there. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.